open communications both ways, not just from me down to the staff, but from the staff up to me.
Welcome to another edition of Friday 5 with Dave Adams. This is the first in a series of discussions that we'll be having with credit union CEOs and their HR executives to talk about organizational culture and the important human resource management issues that drive success at a credit union. Jeff Benson is the CEO of Case Credit Union. He's taken his 30 years experience in financial services and has shared 10 of those years most recently as CEO with Case Credit Union. Kevin Badge is the Vice President of Human Resources at the credit union. And Kevin and Jeff will be talking about organizational culture and the important issues, especially now during this COVID crisis, that are so important for creating a culture that will attract and retain the best and brightest. I hope you'll enjoy the conversation with Jeff Benson and Kevin Badge. Well, welcome, Jeff and Kevin. It's great to have you on this program as we talk about creating and enhancing a great culture for our teams. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Doing great, and Happy New Year. We're looking forward to a 2021 that we hope will be much less eventful than 2020 was.
Indeed.
All right. Well, so in this first quarter, as we're evolving Friday 5 with Dave Adams, 5 questions on a Friday, but we're pivoting now to talk about organizational culture and fostering a great climate for our team members. So maybe Jeff, to start, kind of give us a background on the size of your credit union, how many employees you have, maybe a little bit of background information, if you would.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And Happy New Year again to you and everyone that's listening. My name is Jeff Benson. I'm the president and CEO of Case Credit Union. We're about 360 million in assets. We have about 113 employees, about 46,000 members.
Great. And Kevin, welcome to the program. Maybe you can give us a little introduction to Kevin Badge.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. My name is Kevin Badge. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources here at Case Credit Union. Overseeing our human resources team as well as our learning and development department. You're really trying to keep everybody engaged, especially during these difficult times.
Great to have you on. Well, you know, when we read about leadership and management and we try to observe what makes great companies, there's so much talk about culture, right? Creating, enhancing a culture and a climate for employees that makes them want to come to work, makes them want to be engaged, makes them want to talk positively about the credit union. So Jeff and Kevin, maybe you can both kind of take turns talking about what you think the important elements that go into making a really great organizational culture.
All right. I'll start, Dave, and I'll turn it over to Kevin. So Kevin, jump in anytime you want. I think the main thing is the tone that's set at the top. And when I say at the top, that's set with the board and the CEO. It has to be a positive tone at the very beginning and all the way throughout. And I really believe for the staff that the CEO sets that tone. So it's so important. I'm a firm believer in family. Okay. So we've created, and Kevin can attest to this, we created a family atmosphere at Case Credit Union. When you think of family, you think of brothers and sisters and moms and pops and grandparents and things like that, of nature like that. But and you also think of, you know, we've all had siblings. You think of disagreements and things of that nature. But at the end, you all come together, bond together, and you're going one place. And that's the kind of culture and atmosphere that I really believe we've set at Case Credit Union, that every employee and the board, all of us have bought into it, and it really does work. Kevin, you have anything to add to that part?
No, I mean, it's just basically creating that connection. I mean, we know each other not just as coworkers, we know each other personally and know each other's family and what's going on with everybody to such a deep level that you come to work and people say this is their second family, and we know each other to such a depth. It's great. It's a wonderful environment.
I love the analogy. So how, speaking of families like you did, Jeff, we all know that there are pros and cons to family relations. When things are going great, they're wonderful. And when there's friction, it's not so great. So what are some of the things that you do at your credit union to kind of foster the positives of family?
I really believe honesty and transparency are the two main things that you have to have. So what we do is I share the game plan with the entire staff. When I say the game plan, I'm talking about the strategic plan and our monthly financials at all levels, okay? Because I want to keep everyone updated, and I want everyone, because everyone's an important equal player in this game that we're in, or as part of this family. So I want to make sure that everyone is kept up to date. So honesty and transparency, and open communications both ways, not just from me down to the staff, but from the staff up to me. And we do a lot of different things. One of the things, Dave, that I do every year is I have these small group lunches. I'll have 4 or 5 staff members that will meet me for lunch. Now, this year we did it virtually. What we did was we had lunch delivered to their house, and so we ate virtually while we had these meetings. This gives them an opportunity to get to know me personally, and me to get to know them personally on a smaller scale, and for us to communicate back and forth positive things and negative things, or things that we can change.
And that's the family touch. One of the things that we do that is so positive as families is we break bread together, and we talk about the day, and we get away from formality. I love that. So Kevin, you've been Vice President of Human Resources there at the credit union for 1.5 years. And as you've observed this tone setting that Jeff talks about, what are some of the things that you think really make that work at Case Credit Union?
I mean, it's just when you can see that the CEO truly cares about everybody, it trickles down. It trickles down to the managers, it trickles down to staff. Everybody works together, everybody knows that they're part of one big family and one big team. And therefore everybody works together across departments. We've, based on this, we reduce the amount of silos that, come across. So therefore everybody sees, they're part of any effort to work together to achieve a goal.
And are there things that you do to encourage your supervisors, your senior team members and your supervisors, to bring that softness to managing, to make themselves vulnerable, to admit mistakes, and to be communicative? How do you foster that?
One of the things that we look at and we talk about a lot is empathy. Okay. And empathy, understanding, where they are. Everyone's perception is their reality. So you really have to have empathy, and don't mix that up with pity, which is feeling sorry for someone. There's a difference there in having that empathy. And we kind of pound that into managers all the time. We even teach the staff about that. But to me, that is the key thing. And to piggyback along with that, Dave, would be the team concept. Kevin mentioned we don't operate in silos. We look at the team on everything. So I involve the team, not just the management team, but the staff, to help me make decisions. I want to hear what they're thinking, what they have to say. And then I take everything together, and that's how we come up with the decisions. And you have total buy-in from the whole organization.
That's wonderful. Empathetic listening on the part of the CEO and senior management is so important. And not just listening, but responding, because if you say, I'm going to listen, and you tell me what you need, and then you don't follow through, then that creates problems as well. Well, let's talk about the unique environment we're in. And so many companies, I can say, for companies like the Michigan Credit League and CU Solutions Group that I run, who have the luxury of not being consumer-facing retail operations, we're going completely virtual in terms of work from home. I know credit unions are looking at a hybrid approach. You have to have frontline workers. You don't have the luxury of having everybody work out of their home. But how have you evolved and how are you approaching that during COVID? But even as you look to the future, what you think the more permanent hybrid approach will look like?
And that's an interesting question, Dave. And myself and the executive team, we wrestled with that the first couple months. What we did was we took the whole roster. We didn't take it by individual, we took it by position. And we said, okay, what positions can work 100% from home? What positions are a hybrid, both? And then what positions have to be at the office? We split the list up into that, and then we actually, gave people their option. I did not force people to go home. Most of the people wanted to go home, but I did not force them. We told them these are the positions that if you want to stay home indefinitely, you can stay home indefinitely. I think we've got about at least a half dozen to 10 positions that actually can do that, and they can work from home. And I think those employees will stay home. But then the hybrid ones are, you can work some from home and you may have to come in 1 or 2 days a week, depending on what needs to be done and who we can have do that. And then we've got our 100% come in staff, which are the operations area as far as running the teller line, the drive-through windows and things of that nature. So they have to come in. So those are the 3 buckets that we put it in.
Interesting approach. Kevin, from an HR standpoint, what have been some of the challenges with that, and any secret sauce for making it work?
I mean, part of it is really, we allowed them to take everything home. So set up, their workstations, take their chairs with them and just kind of set up like they normally would, just being in the office. But the key for us was really making sure we have frequent touch points with staff. We expect basically managers to reach out and touch base with staff on a daily basis. And it doesn't just include work discussion, but again, it includes kind of those personal discussions to understand, how you doing, what's going on. We also allowed flexible schedules, especially with people having, children, possibly, doing school from home. So we worked with our staff and said, if you need any flexibility in schedule, we kind of work through that on an individual basis with employees as well.
You're kind of segueing into my follow-up question, which is, aside from work from home, what are some of the unique culture challenges or HR challenges associated with this environment that we're in now? Obviously, keeping employees safe and other such matters.
I mean, interviewing has changed just because now interviewing is 100% online as opposed to bringing people in office. Obviously, finding candidates, it seems unusual, but during COVID, it seems like finding candidates has been fairly difficult. We've moved also training completely remotely, so we had to go from person to person to revising our training completely to be virtual. And then really trying to focus on, since we do have such a family atmosphere and now everybody's working from home, really focusing on team building and morale, and putting on events. We've done, yoga, exercise, group walks, just people walking around their own neighborhood, but all on a Zoom call at the same time, and other events, basically just to keep everybody connected. Even our all staff meetings, we now add a little bit to the beginning of them so people can kind of connect prior to that meeting and see each other, even if it's just over Zoom.
Jeff, what are your perspectives on that? Maybe are there some silver linings, things that we're going to learn from this environment that will make a permanent part of what we do? Or how has COVID really impacted the way you manage your staff, adding on to what Kevin said?
Mm-hmm. I think the connection is probably the key. There's a better connection now, even though it's not personal. And I'm the type of person that likes personal connections, but it's even taught me better connecting. We actually talk to each other more now than we did when we were in the office. We see each other more. Just to add on to what Kevin's saying, as far as the staff, we give them water cooler time or chit chat time during the day where they can just go in a room and just talk about anything. That all staff meeting, a half hour before the meeting, and they're getting paid. they can just go in that room and start chit-chatting and talking about stuff. So I really think it's strengthened our connection, and it can work. I've never worked from home before. I didn't think it was possible. It's very, very possible these last 9 months.
I think that's great perspective. I have been the same way. I've been more of a traditional thinker in terms of the importance of in-person teamwork. And yet, as you said, it's remarkable that in some respects we're talking to each other more. We're seeing more of each other. We're taking advantage of technologies that we were somewhat reluctant to use. So I think that's great perspective. Let's move back a bit from COVID and these issues we're talking about, and just talk in terms of human resource management and fostering a great culture in a quote normal environment. What are the important things that every credit union should be most focused on when they approach really strong, effective human resource management?
So you want me to take that one, Jeff?
You go right ahead.
I mean, it starts with basically, trying to hire the best and brightest. I mean, I guess your credit union is only as good as the people there. So, I mean, you need to find the best and brightest people you can, and then put a lot of investment in learning and development of those employees, keeping them engaged, keeping them challenged, and again, focusing on employee morale. I mean, those are really some of the keys. And then, obviously part of the employee morale is being fair and consistent across the board to all employees. So they understand that you care for each and every person on the team, and everybody has a fair chance and fair treatment across the board.
Excellent. Jeff, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'll echo everything Kevin says. And what we've also have done is we've actually allocated some more resources to the human resources area so that Kevin can have more people, because it is a little bit more challenging now to do this online as far as the HR function is concerned. So we're finding out that we have to put some more resources to that, just like we have to put more resources to our electronic services. We have to our human resources services also, and it's really working. So, and Kevin's very happy because he's pretty swamped with everybody at him at one time. So it does make it well. So, but everything else Kevin said, I totally agree. I'm big, Dave, on employee morale. So I'm on Kevin all the time, and Kevin comes up with awesome ideas of how we can keep the morale up. Some of them I think are crazy, but they work, so we do them. So I think probably the funnest thing I did, Dave, is we had this like jazzercise class where it was like an aerobics jazz class. So it was like 8:30 in the morning, and boy, that was a lot of fun. But boy, I had a meeting at 9 o'clock, so it was kind of hard to switch to that meeting at 9. But these are all ideas Kevin came up with.
That's great. And so that's a great follow-on question. How do you come up with the innovative ideas? I think the last question I have here is, what are some of the crazy disruptive things that you've done, and how do you come up with those ideas?
The ideas, kind of come from feedback from staff, really, of what would you like to see? What can we do to keep everybody, and we have discussions on that between, within HR, L&D, as well as other departments, of what do you guys want to see? What would be fun? What would be fun for everybody to do? And, we even brought back some ideas to even the management team and said, okay, guys, what do you think? What is your preference? So we came up with a few ideas and kind of threw those out there. And we've even had, some cake challenges and some other things that have been interesting. So, just baking challenges amongst staff. So.
Dave, to add to,
I'm sorry,
Dave. I just wanted to add to that. One of the things that Kevin did was, and he didn't mention, is we do our annual staff survey every year, but we did a second one. We did our regular one, but we did one with the people that are working from home. They had a separate one, separate questions, and then the people that are still working in the office had a separate survey. And I don't know if Kevin may want to elaborate on how that came out, but.
I mean, we were shocked and amazed. I mean, the results were pretty consistent. It didn't seem like we missed a beat. The results and satisfaction of the people working in the office were very similar to those working from home. I mean, people working from home said they felt very connected, said they still felt very much a part of the team, and really were engaged and happy with their current work situation. So,
did you have to do any reductions in force, layoffs, or any kind of staff cuts during the initial COVID recession?
We did some temporary layoffs during the initial part of COVID. We basically kind of reduced our part-time staff, laid them off, but then we brought them back a few months later.
The reason I asked that is, and that's great, what I was going to ask is, have you actually found that employee scores are a bit higher in this environment, or have they been about the same?
They were about the same. I mean, I think, I don't think, quite honestly, I mean, we had everybody do the survey after everybody returned. So, I mean, I think we got, there was a little bit of, angst over, well, I got laid off, so that doesn't make me extremely happy.
Sure.
But I mean, our scores were basically about spot on the same as last year.
Well, the fact that they're the same when you're having to do temporary layoffs, I think speaks volumes. And I think, so Jeff, I guess to wrap up, Jeff and Kevin, this has been really informative, but to shift from the fun to not so fun, there have been a lot of compliance issues. I mean, HR compliance is just something that goes with the territory, but with the executive orders and with some of the things that we need to be implementing to keep employees and members safe, how has that journey been?
That's and I'll let Kevin expand a little bit on it. That's been an interesting journey. Dave, we started that journey right in March, developing guidelines, coming up with safety stuff, and we revise them sometimes daily, don't we, Kevin? Depending on what it is. One of the things, Dave, that I started doing that the staff really likes is they get a weekly Monday update from me. I send it late Sunday night, so whoever's the first one when you come in, your first email is from me every Monday. It just gives them updates on our safety protocols, on things that we're doing. Currently, our lobbies are closed. It gives them updates on when we plan to open them back up. How do you do appointments, things of that nature. So that's really it's been a challenge to keep up with everything. Kevin, you have some stuff to add to that?
I mean, we started out meeting, COVID was a new experience, for everybody. From an HR perspective, for, no manager, no HR professional has seen something like this before. So, I mean, we kind of gathered together and made decisions and talked it through as a leadership team, and, made decisions quickly in March and continued to do it all the way, up till now and we set protocols, and, our key focus was employee safety. That was our main goal, and we communicated that very directly and made sure they understood, this is not a decision, or
absolutely,
the things we're putting in place are not to be a hindrance to you. They're not to try and control your entire life, but they're for the safety of yourself, your coworkers, and everybody's family.
Now, with 113 employees, did you, obviously, without divulging anything personal here, did you have employees who contracted the virus?
I think to date we've had one.
That's remarkable. I know in our shop of 140 employees, with them not being frontline workers like your staff are, we've had, I think, 4 or 5 employees and their significant others who have who've gotten the virus, and thankfully they've all gotten better. So, I think all of this discussion is a testament to the good work of Case Credit Union and all credit unions who had to respond so quickly, as you said, Jeff, way back in March, to respond really immediately to the stay safe, stay home order and all the executive orders and the other direction that came down. So I'm really glad that you've done such a great job taking care of your employees and your members. So let's wrap up. Jeff, I'll give you the last word. You have both shared a lot of great ideas, I think, that are very thought-provoking for creating and maintaining a great culture. But if you had to sum it up, Jeff, if you were giving advice to one of your colleagues who you're mentoring right now, who's maybe just getting started in a credit union in a leadership position, what's your best advice on how to create and maintain a great organizational culture?
My best advice would be to listen to everyone. Listen to your executive team, listen to your staff, okay? And just make sure you're setting a positive tone at the top. CEOs have to walk their talk, so we really do set the tone, but listening has been my key.
Easier said than done sometimes, but great advice. Jeff Benson, Kevin Badge, thank you for taking the time to share those thoughts about what is making a Case Credit Union a desirable place to work. It's all, as you said, Kevin, it's about attracting and retaining great talent. And I think a lot of the things that you've talked about provide a good formula for success in that area. Thanks so much for being on with me.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Happy New Year.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did with Jeff Benson and Kevin Badge, talking about establishing a culture and enhancing a climate that will attract and retain top talent. Jeff Benson shared his passion for setting the tone at the top. That's the board of directors and the CEO, setting the tone, creating a family atmosphere, using empathetic listening and follow through to make sure that employees truly trust and believe that management is looking out for their best interests. We talked about the COVID climate that we're in and how quickly the credit union had to adapt and respond to the environment with work from home for staff, and figuring out how to pivot to make that work once the executive orders were relaxed. I found it intriguing how the credit union classified employees by position, for those who could work from home versus a hybrid approach versus those who had to be in the office. And with COVID, Kevin shared how challenging it became to interview and find candidates for open positions, and how training had to go all virtual, and how this family dynamic became much more challenging because of the inability for team members to all interact personally. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. Thank you for watching and listening to Friday 5 with Dave Adams.